Someone, right now, is pouring a glass of cold milk without a second thought. It looks entirely ordinary, but biologically, it is one of the strangest behaviors in the animal kingdom. Every other mammal on Earth loses the ability to digest milk after infancy. Once an animal is weaned, the body shuts down the production of lactase, the enzyme required to process it, because there is no evolutionary reason to keep producing it. For most of our history, humans followed that same rule. Our relationship with large mammals was simple. We hunted them. The ancestor of modern cattle was the aurochs, an aggressive, territorial beast that stood 6 feet tall and weighed over 2,000 pounds. Attempting to milk a wild aurochs would have been suicidal. These were not gentle farm animals. Even if a hunter succeeded, the milk was effectively toxic to them. Without the lactase enzyme, an adult drinking raw milk faced severe cramping, nausea, and dehydration. Transforming this inaccessible liquid into a global staple required a sequence of radical hacks to human technology, and eventually the human genome itself. The first hack appeared around 7000 BCE in the Fertile Crescent. Early farmers discovered that if you left milk in a warm clay pot, environmental bacteria would break down the lactose, converting it into lactic acid. This produced a tangy, protein-rich yogurt that even lactose-intolerant adults could eat. By adding rennet and pressing the solids, they created cheese. These biochemical workarounds allowed humans to bypass their biological limits before their bodies had actually evolved to handle dairy. This changed the economics of farming. A slaughtered cow provides meat once. A cow kept alive provides calories, fats, and proteins day after day for years. Dairy animals became a renewable food source that could sustain a family through a famine. By the time of the Egyptians and Sumerians, dairy was no longer just food, it was wealth. Temple records list butter and milk among the sacred goods managed by priests, and tomb paintings show cows being milked to sustain the dead in the afterlife. But fermentation was just a manual fix. The next major shift moved from the clay pot into the genome itself. Roughly 7,500 years ago, a random accident occurred on chromosome 2. A single nucleotide was swapped for another. This tiny change did something extraordinary. It kept the body producing lactase straight into adulthood. In most cases, a random mutation like this disappears within a few generations. But for people already keeping cattle, this glitch provided a massive survival advantage. During a drought or a brutal winter, the person who could drink milk directly had access to hydration and fat that literally nobody else around them could use. This mutation was carried by the Yamnaya, a group of mobile, aggressive herders from the Pontic steppe. 5,000 years ago, they began a massive expansion into Europe, bringing their cattle, their culture, and their DNA with them. Ancient DNA shows that the Yamnaya contribution to European genetics was massive. This history is still visible on the map today. In Northern Europe and Scandinavia, where the Yamnaya influence was strongest, lactose tolerance rates reached 95%. But the Yamnaya weren't the only ones. Functional equivalents of this mutation appeared independently in East Africa among the Maasai and Fulani, and again on the Arabian Peninsula. Direct access to milk was such a potent survival strategy that natural selection stumbled into the same answer over and over again across 3 different continents. For millennia, milk remained a local product, consumed near the animal, but the Industrial Revolution broke that connection. As millions moved into crowded cities, urban demand for milk skyrocketed, but there were no pastures in the slums. A horrifying industry emerged to fill the void: distillery dairies. Cows were penned in dark sheds and fed hot, acidic whiskey mash. They produced a thin, contaminated liquid that producers whitened with chalk and thickened with plaster of Paris to hide its poor quality. This swill milk was a primary vector for tuberculosis and cholera. In the 1850s, contaminated milk contributed to the deaths of up to 8,000 infants per year in New York alone. The solution came from Louis Pasteur. He discovered that heating liquids to 60 degrees Celsius for a set period killed the harmful bacteria, without destroying the product. He originally developed the process for wine, but its application to milk was immediate. Adoption was slow, until businessman Nathan Strauss began funding pasteurized milk depots at his own expense. He opened clean stations in poor neighborhoods, providing safe milk to families who could finally afford it. The results were undeniable. Infant mortality in neighborhoods served by Strauss's depots plummeted. By 1920, pasteurization became the legal standard, turning milk from a high-risk local product into a safe industrial commodity.
pasteurization was the final technological hack, allowing milk to be bottled, refrigerated, and shipped at a global scale. By the mid-20th century, milk was inseparable from the Western diet. Mandatory school lunch programs and massive advertising campaigns like Got Milk marketed dairy as a universal necessity for health and bone strength. However, recent large-scale studies show no significant link between high milk intake and reduced bone fractures. And while tolerance is the norm in the West, 65% of the global adult population remains lactose intolerant.
The rise of plant-based alternatives, from almond to oat milk, isn't just a trend. For most humans on Earth, avoiding dairy is a return to our species' original biological baseline. Every single glass of milk a lactose-tolerant adult drinks is a tiny echo of an ancient genetic accident. It is a record of a survival strategy that reshaped the DNA of billions, written into our chromosomes 10,000 years ago.